Hey Connor, how you doing, mate?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and hopefully I know a lot of people take a lot away from it. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.
All right, so the first place we should start is just tell us your story. Tell us how you got OP and what you like, your sport. Tell them about your soccer. Just yeah, tell them about you and how OP kind of came about.
So I've always been a pretty good athlete. I run constantly. I used to be in cross country and soccer all through high school, middle school, all that. Uh, like my life was soccer. I love soccer, played it all the time. And I graduated high school in 2012. And a couple years after graduating, right about December of 2014, I got what felt like a groin strain in my left leg. Only in my left leg at the time. And it was kind of like on and off. It wasn't too bad, and I just played through it for a good 6 months, I'd say. And it was never too bad until probably about half the summer of 2015. It started getting really, really bad. And I actually, this is somewhat unrelated, but I actually hurt my knee as well. And I went through all of these doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with my groin, why this groin strain was just refusing to heal. And I went to see like an orthopedic surgeon who sent me to physical therapy. And I did 3 months of physical therapy initially. And it worked a little bit, but it just came back even worse as soon as I left. And it just really wasn't working. And so when I went back and said, hey, it's really not working, they couldn't find anything on a scan or anything, so they just said, well, the only thing we do is just do another couple months of physical therapy to see if it helps. And I did, and after the end of the next couple months of physical therapy, I was actually worse off than when I'd started. And it was extremely, extremely frustrating. And I just got worse and worse to the point where I couldn't run anymore without being in some pretty severe pain. And I would still try and play soccer, but I had to completely change my game. I could only kick with my right. My left foot was completely off limits. I couldn't do anything with my left foot anymore. I'm right foot dominant. And so right about, so this is June of 2017, 3 years later, that it's finally better. So it took me about 3 years to finally say, all right, enough is enough. And I basically went online and just researched everything I could on how to fix this because after the physical therapy didn't work and I actually got worse over that time, I then moved on to trying to completely rest from all physical activity, trying to make sure that my groin was completely healed before I would start up any sort of jogging, any sort of physical activity. So I started out with like 6 months of rest from any running, playing soccer, all of it, which was extremely hard for me to do, like really, really hard for me to do, because it really was like my life at the time. And after the 6 months, I put on my cleats and tried to jog around a little, pass the ball a little bit. And before I was even done, just playing around with some friends for like 30 minutes, the pain was already back and it was worse than ever before. I'd only gotten worse after 6 months of rest. So at that point, I was really upset because I'd been like dealing with this thing for years, like over 2 years at this point. And it just seemed impossible to get over. I was starting to think that I wasn't ever going to get any better. And so I went back to the doctor again, and I did eventually get a MRI on my groin and my hip. And what they told me was that I did have an MCL sprain at one point, but that had healed. And so that's where I got the pain in my knee from. But then my knee kept getting irritated, and I really thought that it was connected to the OP. And that was the other thing that he told me was that there's this thing called OP, and you have it in your hip, basically in the center of your hip on the pubic symphysis. And so he basically told me that there wasn't that much known about it. Physical therapy helps sometimes for some people. It certainly didn't for me, even when they did know what it was, unfortunately. And basically he said it just kind of has to run its course. So I thought, well, I guess I'll just keep it and try and wait it out, let it run its course. So I waited another 6 months of just total rest.
Oh, so this was on top of the 6 months before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, almost
I didn't know that. Yeah, go on.
Which was tough, besides from how boring it is to never do my passions for like a year, and struggling with it much more than a year before that, even when I was playing. It was just really tough. And so after the 6 months, I did the same thing. I went out, tried to kick around a little, tried to jog around a little, and it was the worst it had ever been. And I was just so demoralized. So what I did was I went online and just researched everything I could, like just obsessed with trying to find something to get like my life back on track, and not. I seriously thought for a couple months that I was going to end up in a wheelchair because I went to I would if I went to like the state fair or like a amusement park or something with my friends. After walking like a mile and a half, I would start feeling this awful, really uncomfortable pain right in the middle of my hip. And at this point, it had spread to my right groin as well, which didn't make any sense because if it was a groin strain, of course, it would have stayed in my left. So I was just so confused and upset. And yeah, after like just walking a bit over a mile, it was really hard to walk comfortably. And I thought, I mean, at that point, I really thought I was going to end up in a wheelchair, not being able to walk, because I thought it was only going to get worse. Because that had been my experience, was that no matter what I did, it just kept getting worse and worse. So I thought I was just going to continue on that track of it getting worse. It was really awful. And so I finally found the OP clinic through all of my Googling online. And I was kind of, I sent you an email March of 2017. And then
towards the end, I think,
set up the first, the 30-minute or 20-minute free session, and we just went from there. And honestly, after like the first 2 sessions, I was already feeling way better. I mean, I felt way more stable. Things just felt more normal. And I also went with it because I saw all those testimonials, and the stories were so similar to mine, and it just clicked, and everything just made sense because it applied directly to my case, and it just made complete sense. Everything was consistent with what I'd experienced. So this was like my last hope.
It's so funny just how like the elements change and different people have different types of OP. Some people get it like in the lower abdomen area. Some people get like more hip related stuff in conjunction with the OP. Some people get like just constant when they're sitting, and it's not too bad when they're moving. Like it changes, but the story is always the same. It's rest makes it worse. Like misdiagnosis, no one really knows what's going on, and just this continual like sense of like I don't actually know what to do. Like rehab kind of helps, but it doesn't. Like some of the rehab feels good, some of it just hurts. It's always this really similar story of just like because people don't know exactly what it is, right? And like the first things we did was just like I just talked and like explained it and like showed you how you moved and was like, hey, this is what causes your pain and this is what you'll have to fix to make it better, kind of thing. I think, and maybe you can talk about it, but I think the doubt makes everything else worse. If you know it's a strain or you know it's a tear, you know what you need to do. You got to rest it, you then strengthen it, and you go back and play. Like OP just doesn't behave like any of that, and I think the doubt is worse than everything. It's the fear and the doubt just amplifies everything.
Yeah, I had no experience with how to fix an injury like this, and everything that I knew about injuries was completely failing me on this one. I was just everything that I thought would help was not helping or seemed to be hurting me more. And it was just so frustrating.
Well, it's funny, right? Because you and like the entire medical profession in a way is kind of like playing catch up because it's such a weird and unique condition compared to almost all others. The closest thing I bring it to is lower back pain. Lower back pain has a lot of the same things. It doesn't respond necessarily well to rest. You just get weaker. It's like chronic. It's constantly over there. You can't really strengthen the area. That makes it worse. It's this chronic pattern of pain. And yeah, I think it's really similar to OP. All right, so go on.
I actually started. So I did eventually get it on both sides, my left and my right, in both groins, and I also actually started to get lower back pain in the last like 6 months before we started our sessions. So it was just spreading from my left to then to my right side, and then even my lower back. It was supremely frustrating, yeah.
And it's super common, lower back pain and knee pain and ankle issues and stuff like that because of the nature of OP and how that sacroiliac joint gets locked. Yes, super common. And it's like the body's just shutting down. All right, so you jump online, you jump on the OP clinic, and there's just like information overload. How did you kind of go, like, making your way through all this content and just kind of like, and even when we meet up and we have a session and I'm just like talking and like, always stopping and asking how you're going, but just like information. What was your like headspace? Is like this information is just flooding you and you're trying to like make sense of it?
Well, I was trying to be, like a critical thinker, and the first thing that I found was your YouTube videos. I probably typed in something like how to fix OP into YouTube,
Yeah.
and I found your videos, and then from there I found the website, and I started out watching like 2 or 3 videos, and it seemed pretty legit, so I was like, okay, let me check out the website, see what this is all about, and I was just so desperate to try anything to get better that I just went ahead and poured through as much of it as I could. And it just made so much sense. And everything just seemed to click when nothing really had before, that I was really excited. And the very next day, I showed my parents the website. I was like, hey, this is something I want to try. Trying to finally cure this thing and get better. And yeah, it was a lot of information. So what I first did was probably looked at like the first 2 tabs, the first 2 pages, and just looked at, it's been a while since I've been there, but just like what causes OP and what it is, just the basics that you have up there. And then I went to the testimonials. I think they were like 20 minutes long each. And I remember seeing a guy in his living room with like a hoodie on, kind of hunched over in front of his computer.
Yeah, Greg.
Probably know who. And he was telling his story kind of like how I am now. And that's when I was like, okay, this is exactly my case, where nothing else has ever really applied before to how I actually feel. What the doctors have said doesn't quite make sense. They're just missing it. This guy is spot on. This is real, yeah.
It's funny.
That's what this is what's gonna work.
Yeah, it's funny. He's very similar to you, like extremely super uber fit guy, like who was kind of like just crushing everything, triathlons, rock climbing and stuff like that. And then it gets this like OP that just grounds everything to a halt. All right, yeah. So we jump in, we do a couple of sessions, and I'm like, all right, here's some heavy weights, go lift it. What's the first thoughts that are going through your head as you start like doing some of these weird exercises and there's like 17 instructions and it's like, go lift that really heavy weight and just like, and lift it and you'll feel better. What's going through your head as you're doing that?
I feel like the first 2 sessions weren't too bad. They were more like core work, but then it quickly got much tougher. Probably the hardest thing for me was the kettlebell swings. Now I love them, honestly, but at the time, man, they were rough. Yeah, it was pretty tough when we started adding the weights into all these different exercises. But the pain in my knee went away almost instantly. Like after like the first, probably the second week. By the second week, it was pretty much completely gone. It was pretty. I was pretty optimistic about it at that point. Yeah.
So how did you like? So we're making our way through the program, and like so for anyone watching, like I'll send video reviews. So Connor would do some exercises, send me some videos, and then I would annotate on them, tell him what he needed to improve, send them back to him. We do that a couple of times a week. How did you find that whole process and kind of working your way through that?
Well, I try to think of it as a replacement for the physical therapy sessions because before, when I was doing physical therapy, I would do it twice a week for an hour each time. And so I just saw it as that, but over video. And it worked extremely well, maybe even more so because I could see the video of myself played back with personalized corrections for me on what I need to do to correct my form or technique or whatever it is that I wasn't doing quite right. And if the one-on-one session didn't quite get everything that we needed to perfect exercise, the videos did pretty quickly after that. It was really a good idea to use the videos to help move the program along.
Yeah, camera never lies. Camera never
Yeah.
lies. So you just recently you went out, you played a game. How did it feel? What was it like? How did it like take me through the experience?
Well, besides from being able to play soccer again, I mean that just I loved it. But I felt great. I had zero pain. Um, I mean, I just felt wonderful, and I played a whole 75 minutes out of 90, just because I'm a little bit out of shape still. But I felt really, really good. I just had no pain. The way I was moving was so much more natural and normal that I almost like didn't know how to play anymore because it was so much better. Before I just couldn't use my left foot at all. This time I was like sending like 40-yard passes with my left foot. It was just such a relief and really encouraging to be able to play my game the way I used to know how, and to get back into that. It was just amazing.
It's funny because yeah, when you mentioned that just earlier about like your friends and stuff, like being like forgetting how you used to play, like it's hard to remember. Like 3 years is such a long period of time to play through an
Yeah.
injury, like that it would completely change how you play and how you would go about like just even thinking about the game and thinking about your role in a team and stuff like that. It is such a long period of time you forget, kind of thing. How that can completely change your outlook on how you play a sport, even.
Yeah, it was a lot of my friends mentioned it to me because I basically came back after a year of rest looking like I'd been playing that entire time. It was kind of confusing to them, but I hadn't been playing. I'd been resting, but I just could move normal again. So it looked like I'd gotten better. It was pretty encouraging hearing that too.
I liken it to essentially like if you never dress up and then you dress up really well, people are always like, "Wow, you look good."
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, one more question, and I guess this is something I ask everyone is so if someone's kind of like they're reading the site or they're seeing the videos, and they kind of like put yourself back in their place again, like some weird dude on the internet talking over like YouTube and writing just ridiculous amounts of content, like. Putting yourself in their place, like, what would you want to say to them? Like, if they're kind of holding off or they don't want to kind of like book in a session or something like that, what would you say to them? What would you want to tell them?
Basically, just that it worked for me, and it worked better than I was ever expecting. Because after like 3 years of suffering, I thought anything that was going to fix me was going to take a really long time. Well, it took like 2, 3 months for me. So, I mean, it was just above and beyond all my expectations. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and anyone watching this, hopefully, yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Jason.
Cool. Yeah, that was awesome. Now,